is great, God is Lord. Christ is King, Christ is God, Christ is Savior. The Holy Spirit's Lord, the Holy Spirit's God, the
Hey
Holy
everyone, and
Spirit.
thank you for joining me on Contemplative Theology. The following is going to be an excerpt from one of my blog posts, Reflections on Numbers 31. This was definitely a passage of scripture in the Bible that really challenged my faith and was really hard for me to reconcile, and one that I had to work through. And thankfully, I have worked through it, haven't become an atheist, and eventually I'm going to do an entire video of Numbers 31 on that with that journey. I'm going to use AI to kind of give like a more of a narrative story approach to it. It also saves me time as a father of three, all under they're all under four, 4 and under. So busy life with work and stuff like that. So this is just a way for me to save time and still be able to produce content. Maybe not regularly like as most other YouTubers would, but at least on a consistent basis, somewhat. I'm not seeking to be a huge star or anything like that, but just hopefully to share some things that I went through that may possibly help others who may be wrestling with certain aspects of scripture that may challenge their faith. And this particular excerpt is going to be a thought experiment. Nothing new. Follows the trolley problem on that with a little bit of a twist to it. But the main point of this thought experiment is just to highlight that we as humans, at least in context of number 31, do not have the ability to criticize God's moral decisions because of the limitations of our knowledge, right? And you'll kind of get that teased out within the thought experiment. I just wanted to publish something a little bit more substantive or substantive, I'm not sure if I'm using the right word, than what I have been bringing out, and kind of give an idea of how I want this channel video format to follow. It'll be a quick introduction for me, some sort of AI thing, maybe with an ending, and maybe some music here and there. Anyway, that being said, hope you enjoy the thought experiment.
Consider first for a moment the trolley problem. Imagine there is a train racing forward at 80 miles an hour, and an evil scientist, wanting to observe human psychology in perilous circumstances, ties 5 people to the right train track and 1 person to the left and sets the train's default to run over the 5. All of them have bags over their heads, all adults, so your judgments will be based solely on the number of people that would die in the scenario. You have the option to hit the switch, and the train tracks will shift, and only 1 person will die. What do you do? Think of your answer for a moment, and when you have it, I will share mine. I would hit the switch without thinking about it too much in such an extreme scenario. It's easy for us to be upset with people for making the wrong decision in precarious circumstances, but if we are honest, sometimes we are placed in moral dilemmas where there is no easy answer, where regardless of what we pick, it is not the ideal choice. For instance, an employer hiring 2 candidates who both have families to feed, whoever they choose means passing over the other. Thus, there is some amount of good to go along with some sort of suffering with either option they choose. It's inescapable. If you have only 1 antidote for a poisonous venom from a snake bite and 6 people are bitten, do you not use it at all to be fair, or is it better to save 1 life than no lives? This will be important to remember later with the Amalekite problem. There are sometimes no ideal solutions, but for now let me share my why. The underlying moral assumption behind my reasoning is the value of human life and the desire to preserve and maximize it as much as I possibly can. Let's now redo our scenario, but this time in the mad scientist's twisted experiment. There are no bags over the people's heads, and this time the scientist is forcing you to be an onlooker. As the train moves full speed ahead, you notice the man forced to decide the train's direction appears to have a conflict of conscience as he looks at the one man on the left track with utter hatred and then with longing eyes at a woman over at the other track to the right. Grudgingly he doesn't pull the switch, and 5 people die. The diabolical scientist looks at you and asks, "What do you think?" Well, what do you think? What reasons do you believe the man had for not pulling the lever and saving the one man at the expense of 5? Remember, he could see everyone's faces, and so it appears he despised the very man's life he saved and appears to have loved the woman on the other side of the track, who he could have saved with the flick of a lever, plus 4 more. What do you think was going through his mind? Do you believe he was wrong in his decision? Remember, 5 lives are gone forever now, and we would certainly call out the man who saved only 1 kid from drowning when he could have saved 5. Take your time. I bet you didn't come to the correct answer, and that's okay, you are working off incomplete information, which I will fill in for you now. The man on the left track who was spared is a brilliant neuroscientist on the verge of curing Alzheimer's disease, and the lady on the right track was his wife, who had developed 3rd-stage Alzheimer's. His feelings of anger and resentment stemmed from the realization that the very man he was going to save so he may continue his work was most likely the only man who could have saved his wife, but that by sacrificing her, he would at least be able to spare anyone else from having to suffer in the way he has. If we did not have this information, we would think this man to be a monster, but with more information, we can see him in a different light and understand that his sacrifice was immense, and he did it for the greater good of humanity by saving the scientist who could potentially go on to save many, many more lives and reduce suffering. With incomplete information, it is easy to think evil of someone, so it's best to withhold judgment until we have all of the facts. This will also be important to remember for later.